Advice about getting your financial life under control typically involves a lot of number crunching, but author and MoneyWatch blogger Farnoosh Torabi believes the key to success is all in your head, as she explains in her new book, Psych Yourself Rich. Thanks for being here, Farnoosh.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Can you explain the title of your book?
The title kind of came organically out of my mouth when I was explaining to friends what this book that I was attempting to write was really all about. And I kept using the words emotion and getting into it and getting motivated. And I was like, you know, it's like psyching yourself. Aha, psych yourself rich.
You mentioned emotion, but in your book, you say that emotions can lead us to making bad financial decisions and even can lead to people just freezing up and making no decision at all.
I've interviewed psychologists, behavioral experts, economists, and while they all come from different points of view, they do agree with the notion that when you harbor negative feelings about money and with money, that creates a cognitive bias. It's a scientific term, but really it's like a mind trap or a mind barrier. And it prohibits us from making the rational, good, healthy decisions that we ultimately need to make to take our finances to the right and next step.
So in that case, emotion's getting in the way.
Right.
But you also say that in some cases, fear can be a motivator.
It can. Of course, in the worst case scenario, fear paralyzes us. We're afraid of, say, flying, so we never get on the plane, we never make that journey, we don't go anywhere. That's not good. And if you're afraid of money or you're afraid of your circumstances with money, that can stop you dead in your tracks, and we don't want that. Instead, we want you to first analyze that fear. Where is it coming from? What are you really afraid of? Visualize it. Is it that you're afraid of the fact that you might have to go back home and live with mom and dad and that's not fun? Or that you're going to lose your house, unfortunately, because you can't make that extra mortgage payment? Whatever that is, swim in that fear, live in it, feel it. It's visualization. It's a behavioral technique that's proven to work. Now that you've sort of scared yourself straight, hopefully, create that course of action that you need to take to avoid that worst case scenario so you don't go down fear lane. Is it calling up your lenders and asking for some help, finding another source of income, working night shifts, whatever you have to do? At this point now, it's not going to seem like an annoyance. It's going to seem like your ticket to freedom.
Well, in a way, that's a very realistic approach because often we tell people, you know, don't act on fear. But the fact is, it's always there. So if you can harness it, I guess that's putting it to good use.
Harnessing it, exactly. Taking control.
Okay. Now let's talk about a handful of specific things that you say can put people on the path to financial happiness.
Sure.
First of all, use cash whenever possible.
I love this tip, and I want to credit this to Dan Ariely, who's the author of Predictably Irrational. I interviewed him for this book. He was generous with his time because I thought his research was phenomenal in the field of behavior and money particularly. And
he's one of our favorites.
We love Dan. So in talking to Dan, I said, you know, Dan, I love this tip about people using cash because on the one hand, it limits us, right? Technically, it limits us. We can't overspend more than what's in our wallet, unlike a credit card. And he took it a step further and he said, well, Farnoosh, cash actually will also keep you honest. And I love that because it goes back to the relationship that you have with money. And what he meant by the honesty aspect of this is that it's true. When you use cash, you're forced to think honestly about the purchase that you're making and whether it's really applicable to your goals, not just today, but in the long run. So if you're going to shell out $100 for dinner one night, it kind of hurts.
So by using bills, we actually see exactly how much this is costing.
Yes, and you feel it. You feel it going out of your wallet. You're not going to see that money again, so you're forced inevitably to think twice, 3 times about whether that purchase is really worth it to you. And I talk a lot about worth in the book.
Well, speaking of that, you say that you should, whenever you make a purchase, you should think about what you call the item's utility.
Right. The utility is sort of what are you going to get in return for this purchase and how well does it align with your goals, short-term and long-term. So, for example, right now, people are looking at the housing market and seeing opportunities. Prices are low, interest rates are low. I have a friend that I had a conversation with earlier who has the financial capacity to buy a house. He's saved his money. He's ready, he thinks, for a big purchase like that. But he questions the utility. In other words, what do I really need to buy a house for right now? I'm only 30. I'm not married. I'm not ready to settle down. I might want to move in the next 5 years. That's exactly the kind of conversation you need to be having with yourself before you buy anything at that level.
And everyone should create one personal rule of thumb.
Yes. You know, as humans, we like rules of thumb. It keeps us sort of on track. And this is coming from people who teach classes on behavior at universities across the country. They tell me this works. So I extracted that and put it in the book. And so one rule of thumb, maybe it's I won't spend more than $50 on jeans ever. You know, some of us need those rules of thumb, or like dieters, I will not eat after 8 p.m. I just won't. And they stick to it for whatever reason, because it's like a blanket statement that they've made, that they came up with it on their own too. It wasn't something that someone preached to them.
And my favorite, because I haven't done this, make a 5-year plan.
Please make a 5-year plan. And this sort of evolved out of the market crash. People were not prepared for fluctuations in the market. They weren't prepared for losing a job. But that usually happens every 5 years, right? So we're getting better at the rainy day savings thing. We're getting better at the 401k thing, the retirement savings. We have a lot more work to do in those departments still. But I say don't forget about the sort of middle term, because life happens along the way. And think about what might be some of the developments in your life. Maybe you're going to move, maybe you're going to have a family or another child, or be sending a child to college. These are really important milestones that we want you to hit. So think about what the price tags are and how to start preparing for that today, so that in 5 years you don't wake up and something that is a financial surprise doesn't become a financial crisis.
Thanks for all this advice, Farnoosh.
You're welcome.
And thank you for watching.